one more time, happy Easter. And then I would like to thanks to our academic guest speaker today, Ms. Sumer and Ms. Sünbüloğlu. Thank you very much accepting to be with us. And also from our companies, I would like to thanks to Reed, Alfa Laval, Atlas Copco, and Volvo Cars for their contribution today to this seminar by sharing their experiences. And also in the meanwhile, Magnus, I would like to welcome you. Due to the pandemic, I couldn't get the chance to welcome you face to face, but for your assignment in Turkey, and welcome again. And it's really good to host you today as a guest speaker. And I don't want to get more time, and it's the time is important for all of us. And I would like to give to you, Aslı, to manage this webinar, please.
Thank you, Mustafa Bey. I want to make a positive discrimination, and I would like to start with one of our female guest speakers. Let's start with Atlas Copco. Funda Hanım, screen is yours.
Thanks a lot for this opportunity, first of all. Hello, everyone. I would like to be sharing about the experience on COVID that we have faced as Atlas Copco. So as it was an unexpected change in our culture that brings up new challenges. And so as HRs, that what we have struggled at most is the people engagement. That's what I feel and what we are just faced. So the pandemic is just directly crushed the employees. We as HRs are trying to keep them all aligned. I believe that was the crucial thing that we have to deal with. So the organization which were already prepared for the work from home were better equipped to deal with the situation without any significant impact on the productivity. And that was the luckiest part for Atlas Copco, because we are all prepared in advance for the digital working, for remote working. So the entire plan for the employee journey has changed for me. This means the change of the recruitment practices, reward and recognition policies, the engagement, exits, process, everything in between. All we need to do is just replan everything, which is just going to be distributed to virtual environments. And all beside, all we have to step up and support our people to prioritize their mental and emotional well-being. So that is something else that we have to focus during this period. So a supportive work culture is important. And even when things are going well, but in our current situation and the uncertainty about the coronavirus, it makes it essential. And the task is on us to channel these emotions in order to keep our employees safe, motivated, and productive. So for the well-being, we continue to use our digital platform. We have been just working with a company partner almost for the last 4 years. And during this period, that was really essential for us, and it was good plan for us to work with them. So we plan monthly articles, workshops where our employees find some tips for their daily life. And sometimes it was a simple topic to how to cope with the stress during these times, or sometimes it's just some small tricks to prepare some foods, like the healthy foods in short time period. So that includes everything, the articles about the childcare during COVID that we are all together. So we have to deal with the other stresses as well. So we try to give some short tips and articles on that. And we have prepared some family times that people and the children just interact with each other during the plays. So we use what we have in hands to support our communication, also via sometimes Yammer or Teams meetings for the break rooms, like the happy hours, some coffee talks. We try to do our best to keep staying in touch and try to interact. we think that not one employee should stay out of the community. So I guess at that point, Yammer was the most popular one because it was so simple to use for everyone. And so we just use it for everything. I can say it's for the announcements and some recognitions, business updates, pools, and we share our photos from home, or the field team just put some photos on it. So it was nice to use it actually at that moment. And during this time, what we give the important is the transparent communication. We never resign from that. And the channel that we are share all about the updates on COVID with our employees, that was also important. And I believe that it supported us during this period, the transparency. So we also support with virtual trainings to our employees, that's how to just work from home and what can be the some other training that they can get the support. So also during some time, we're just trying to remind them to give some breaks during the day, which is also not possible at the first time that we start working from home. So looks like we will never be back to the old normal, and none of us has the answer to this uncertainty. But the thing is that what we are just believing is the leadership model has also changed, and now managers must focus on the engagement and the communication with the empathy. So they need to more focus on the people and connection, and they have to care about their employees. So last year was a learning by trial and error for us, but this year I believe we all gained some experience about what we have faced. And at this moment, actually, I would like to share my appreciation to the field team who were always in front to support all our customers from each business, like food, beverage, and even the medical. So thanks for all of our people. I just can say what we have faced during the COVID is a shortly update. Thank you.
Thank you, Funda Hanım. I want to ask a question to you. It's obvious that pandemic will be a part of our life for a while more. During pandemic and post-pandemic periods, what's going to change in the way of working styles? What are the positions or responsibilities will occur or disappear for you?
I think we learn how to work efficiently during this period because first of all, we just move everything in digital platforms, and that support us to work efficiently and productively to focus on the real core business. So we just give up with the administrative side of our works and support us to create and innovate new things. So I believe the IT will support us much more than before, most probably. But the administrative side of all the jobs will just disappear time to time. That's what I've seen and what I believe.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Let's continue with Volvo Car Turkey. Mr. Bowman, what would you like to share with us today? Screen is yours.
Yes, I'm going to share some slides. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see here.
Yes, we
You
can
see this now?
We can see, yes.
Okay, thank you. So basically, first of all, when we talk about HR in our company, we talk about nowadays people experience. And what I would like to present to you in a few slides is basically how we globally have approached basically this with regards to our workforce and how we then look upon the labor market going forward for us, where we recruit our employees. And we are around 40,000 employees globally. And then I'm going to, on the last slide, go through a little bit how we handled the pandemic during last year and also how we do it right now. So let me first introduce the spaghetti metaphor. Basically, what we see now in front of us, we see a world which is very disruptive, unknown, and fast changing. And especially for us in the automotive business, where basically the new technologies are developing rapidly, we also have the digitalization process, which is ongoing for us. And we also have an aim to basically only sell electrical vehicles in the future. So this means that with this environment, we need to think differently, we need to behave differently, we also need to lead differently. And we then express this with this spaghetti syndrome. And if we then start with what we see in the labor market, we see a number of key trends that we need to handle globally as an employer. And there is a war for talent to start with, meaning when we want to recruit the best of the best, there is a war for those. There are other companies who also wants to have those talents. We also see a totally new approach when it comes to flexibility. You can work anywhere, you can work at any time, and basically from any place. And we also have a higher degree of automation in the work we do today. Also, the millennials will soon be a big part of our workforce, and they bring different values, different attitudes, and different expectations, which we need to manage as an employer. And that means that we also need them to organize ourselves differently. We also nowadays organize ourselves around tasks rather than in normal rigid structures. And we also see a clear trend that competence development is going to be part of our daily lives. So it's a constant learning process also for the employees who have been with us for maybe 20, 25 years. If we then want to be in this world attracting employees or people, and we want to attract the right people, we therefore need to make sure that we are the employer of choice. And that's why since a few years ago, we have established these 4 areas where we try to focus on our culture. What do we as a brand and as a company stand for? How should our leadership act? And what type of competence do we need? And how should organization look like? So these are things that we are constantly working with since a couple of years back, which is the center of our company, in order for us to make sure that we are an attractive employer also going forward. So with this said, I would like to move into then what we did during the pandemic. And as you all know, it hit us hard in March. I was not here at that time. I was having a similar position in Denmark, where we also were exposed to this. And obviously, when you shut down an office completely, it's a new, unique situation, which means that you need to manage this. And obviously, the first week is a little bit of a tumble dryer. You need to make sure that you have an infrastructure that works wherever people are. And you need to make sure that you can connect pure technically. Secondly, you need to secure in one way or another that everyone is on board as a team. So we had good morning chats, good morning coffees. You still have all the routines in place, department meetings, town hall meetings, number of project meetings and so forth. So it's a lot about organizing yourself in the proper way initially, and then apply some discipline on this one. But at the end, it boils down to people empowerment and trust. And that is obviously, especially when you now are working remotely, as we did for more or less 3 months. The second phase for us, let's see. There it comes, yes. The second phase for us was basically, we went into in June last year, which means that we went back to some kind of new pandemic normal, where we have a mix of people working in the office and people working from home. And then obviously you need to establish some office engagement rules. So we had certain staff limitations. We have a digital booking system to make sure that we are not overcrowded. We also had to introduce certain office behavior rules. We all make sure that all our meetings are with Teams, because we never really know who is going to be working remotely and who's going to be in the office. And this obviously have created a certain behavior in all of us, but I think it works extremely well. And we are still right now in this phase. And it's all here a lot about people empowerment and trust. And then in order to facilitate our office operations, since we opened office then in June last year, we introduced much more flexible working hours. People can come and go a little bit as they want. We also initiated an additional transportation allowance for those who were not comfortable going on public transports, and we definitely did recommend that. So we allow them to take a taxi if necessary. We also made our pool cars available for those who don't have a company car, so they could use them for personal use. And also then for those employees who have families that are within risk groups, we recommended them to stay home during this time period. And obviously we always try to put the staff's health and safety always first. Looking forward into some kind of new normal in the post-pandemic situation, definitely the flexible working hours is going to be there. We're definitely going to work also more from home than we have done before, but there has to be some kind of framework, I believe, for the office to function properly. And we are not there yet, but I would assume that sometime after summer holidays, we probably will go back to hopefully the new normal. We're going to have digital meetings in a much higher degree than we had before. So you're going to have less physical meetings, obviously. We're going to travel less, for sure. But at the same time, we need to find some kind of way to continue our collaboration, because a big part of our work is that we collaborate with each other and with the colleagues. And that you normally do over a cup of coffee in a breakfast room or whatever. And that we need to find a way how we could continue to collaborate in a good way at the workplace, but at the same time also handle the fact that people are working from home. So we need to find the right recipe for this, because without the collaboration, basically we don't believe that the company will have a chance to develop, and neither the employees. So we need to make sure that we can do that in some form or shape. And also here it boils down to that you trust people and that you give them a chance to do what they are tasked to do without too much supervision. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I was preparing to ask a question regarding how do you foresee an office and work environment to look like in a post-pandemic future? However, you have already answered it. Thank you, Magnus.
Thank you.
Let's continue with Alfa Laval. Elvan Hanım, screen is yours.
Okay, thank you. Now I will try to share my screen.
Please.
Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Perfect.
Okay. I will explain our professional and personal challenges and experiences and how we overcame all of these issues in Alfa Laval. I have only 2 slides, just consist of some keywords. So I will try to summarize all of these issues shortly. The most important thing that we experienced is, according to our professional challenge and experience, was the major shift, that is home office. Although we were aware of working from home concept, as Alfa Laval, it was not in our culture. I mean, we were not used to it, and working from home was not our preference actually. And it was a sudden decision for our management team, and we didn't have any other alternative in that unknown situation. Both management team and the employees had to adopt themselves in this new working style in one day after an email that was sent by HR. So for both management team and our employees, it was the maybe most challenging thing for us. we saw that actually in the end we were both ready and not ready for this new situation. But after a very short while, we realized that everything is going fine, and everybody started adapting themselves in this new working style. And what we have done locally and globally, shortly I want to talk about this. For sure, we prepared some procedures and some emergency plans, both locally and globally. We had some checklists for giving some advices to our people who will be working from their homes for a certain of time, and this was an important issue for us. And also we prepared globally actually some useful tips for working from home were prepared, and it was posted in our share page, and all the employees can be aware of these tips when they were opening our share page. And our leaders had closer communication with their team, and they had routine meetings with their team. As local HR, it was me. I was making some online calls with all the employees, and sharing some time with them and asking their needs, their psychologies, and if they need something else. So as HR, I was also had the duty to support them mentally at the same time. And also global HR at Alfa Laval was doing the same thing in those times. And HR role, what was my role and what was the role of global HR at Alfa Laval? We really gave emphasis on mentally support to our employees. So we made this actually, and at the same time it was a challenging process for the HR, because everybody was asking every question they have about COVID-19 to HR. On the other hand, HR was not very sure about the answers, because most of the people couldn't know the right answers. So this was a challenging process for me as local HR. So I really spent many time to find the right answer, but sometimes I couldn't find. This was struggling for me. And also, of course, globally, some preventions were taken, and this made all of the employees feel uncertain about their future as employee. So it was the HR role to explain them what's going on and what will be happening in next steps. So this was another challenge for HR. And the other hot issue was digitalization, of course. Actually, we were talking about digitalization every time, but after this pandemic and after we started to work from home, it was the most important, it became the most important issue for us. So all of the people started to be digitalized. So somebody adopted this process, but somebody had some problems, and of course, again, it was the HR's roles to make people adopted this process easily. So it was another challenge for me to work on digitalization. And the other point that I would like to talk about, personal challenges and experiences, and maybe this one is is more challenging than the professional challenges, because everything became to be more strange in this pandemic. So after we start to work from home, people started to work with their families in the same place. And it was not a thing that we used to do. At the same, for example, wife and husband is working from home. The children are working from home, and they had some online lessons. So it was a home just designed to live all our private lives with the sense of comfort. But all of a sudden, everything has changed, and our homes became to be an office or a school. So these make us to have more responsibilities personally and professionally. So, for example, as being a mother, I also faced many challenges about this process. For example, I remember that in the first day when my child joined to online education, we were sitting together in our living room, and I was trying to understand the system that she is using, and she was also trying to understand the system, and at the same time I was trying to do my job as an employee. So this was really hard for many people. So this is one of the most important personal challenge that globally all the people faced in our world. And of course, these also created some concentration problems, and this was also another challenge that all the people experienced. And also one of the most important things that we have faced with was setting boundaries, which disturbed work and life balance, and because we started to have no breaks, nearly all the employees, and this became a global issue. So because we are working from home, we started to be online all the time, and everything became online, and we started not to have a social life. So we continuously work. We have mostly no breaks. So work and life balance also is getting disturbed. And as Alfa Laval, we again globally many documents and tips were published, and it was put on our share page, and we can have the clues how to create our work and life balance again, although we are working from home, and we can have all of these information from our share page. Actually, I have only these points, and I will stop sharing, and if you have any questions, I can answer.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I strongly agree with you as a working woman.
Yes, I know.
My question can be, what was the most extraordinary corporate decision you had to make during COVID-19, and how did it affect your employees?
Well, in the beginning of my presentation, I underlined that the major shift for us was working from home. Of course, we were aware of it, but it was a major shift for us because it was not in our culture. But now, nearly for 1 year, we are working remotely, and everything is fine. We finished 2020 in a very successful way as Alfa Laval Turkey. So now everything is okay, but still in future we want to be back in our offices. But the most important extraordinary decision that we have taken was working remotely.
Thank you, Elvan Hanım. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We thank you too. Now I would like to introduce you with Asiye Yıldırım from Reed Turkey. We will have a chance to understand the subject through the eyes of a professional recruitment company. Thanks to Asiye Hanım. Asiye Hanım, it's your turn.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I want to thank Aslı and Swedish Chamber of Commerce family for this opportunity. Thank you very much again. At the beginning, we thought that this COVID-19 pandemic will end until the end of 2020, but unfortunately, still we are in the process to vaccination. I would like to wish you and your loved ones healthy days, and I hope we will be completing these days with no more loss. This is very important, I believe. Starting from March until today, we all focused on health. We started to care more than ever our health in our daily life and our business life. Reed Turkey's management's first topic is our employees' health. Our second priority was the continuity of our business. Our business strategy became to protect our employees and our business health and continuity, like yours. As Reed Turkey, we operate in service sector and we are working in staffing market. Our services are search and selection, flexible workforce, we will be talking about on, recruitment process outsourcing, outplacement service, and payrolling services. I would like to share the action we have taken during the COVID-19 period. First of all of our employees moved remote working system from their homes, like yours. Starting from 16th of March, we all start to work from our homes. Our technology supported us to work from our homes. Thanks God, we have invested in this kind of technologies before. We adapt our working system for the new normal. Our health and safety team and HR team worked very closely, and I informed every co-member about new working system and the health and safety system verbally and also in written. We have defined our communication system with our clients, with our suppliers, and with our team members. With the support of technology, we organized management meeting every week and updated them our actual situation, business-wise, and health-wise too. Direct communication made by Global MD with his own video blogs, and he still continued to do. He got a break for Easter. Right now, he's going to skip this week, and next week he will continue to do, which is very, very important for us. In this crisis, as a manager, we were honest, open, and transparent to our team members. In addition, those are the values we hold every action we take and every day we operate. So, which is very important, I believe, to be open and transparent and honest to your team members. We have adapted our working system for the new normal. Fulya Hanım also mentioned we change our recruitment style. So, for instance, we start to use digital working system such as Teams, Zoom, Yammer, these kind of tools to evaluate our candidates and to listen our clients' requirements. We have used all these tools to understand the requirements from client side and candidate side. We also applied surveys to our clients and team members to understand their needs, ideas, and emotions. We took lots of ideas. They were so generous, and we were so lucky. We got lots of ideas from these surveys, and we adapt our working system accordingly. We try to understand customer needs specifically for this period and try to revise our working system and try to give some answers to our clients' requirements. To improve our communication during the pandemic period, we have organized events for our team well-being, of course. One of them was psychological counseling. We discussed about COVID period and the stress that we are living in with the psychological counselor. And the second one, much more fun, we organized an event with private chef. We cooked spaghetti with meatballs and we enjoyed a lot. And what else? We have organized employee assistance program with headquarters. This program started on 1st of March. It's about psychological counseling, financial counseling, and legal counseling. Who needs these kind of support for themselves and for the family members too. We sent some gifts to our employees to celebrate their special days, such as birthday, New Year, these kind of special days. We have organized free times to talk about ourselves and our emotion. What do we feel in this process? While closely monitoring the performance of the business, and also we focused on the mood of our employees, which is very, very important. We also figured out that we can benefit from those times. So we organized two kind of events. One of them is learning from my colleague. One of the experienced team member who wants to explain and transfer her knowledge to the others could have chance to tell her success, for example. The second one is stage is yours. We have 3 offices in Turkey. We have Istanbul, Izmir, and Ankara offices. Of course, we know our colleagues, their names, but of course we met before, but we didn't know them very well. So we arrange Stage is Yours events so they can explain whatever they want. But this subject has to be related with their self. We ask lots of questions. By doing this, we know them better. With these events and arrangement, we want to motivate them, and we don't want to focus on their performance only, also focus on their emotions and feelings and thoughts too. As I mentioned, we applied surveys to our clients and created white papers and share with them. Also, we have created booklets, which will be very useful for our clients. For instance, remote onboarding, how to design remote working system for their organization, outplacement, or flexible workforce, for example. We created these kind of booklets and we shared with them. We made more than 100 placements in 2020, and we provided outplacement, flexible workforce, and recruitment services. Until today, we have only one disease, but we didn't lose any of our employees, thanks God. And our aim to ensure the continuity of work we carry out with our customers by protecting the health of our employees in the following days. This is our experience during this hard time. Aslı, you're on mute, I think, so I can't hear you.
Aslı, we cannot hear you.
So sorry about that. Okay, thank you, Asiye. It was very grateful presentation and the experiences for us. Thank you. We are wondering about how companies have been adapting their HR processes and their work environments to the new circumstances dictated by the COVID-19 pandemic, how they are making sure they are ready for the future. What do you think about that?
Okay. Magnus, Elben, and Funda also give some, clue and some experiences they had, which is very, very valuable. The role of HR professionals has changed, to be honest, and this is a big exam for all of us, and the big opportunity to reassess our way of doing business, to be honest. COVID-19 has drastically reshaped the economy and the labor force. This made us to rethink about how we work, where we work, what kind of technology we use, and how we communicate with the others, and etc. Such massive changes escalating the importance of HR role within organization, and CEOs and the employees are turning to HR to get guidance, to get ready for the future needs. I believe this is HR moment to lead organizations in navigating the future. But they have to modernize themselves, otherwise they will be irrelevant, to be honest. What will change in the future? In which subject we have to invest to get ready for the future? I always try to get these kind of answers. So let me explain what kind of change we face. First of all, our working system has changed. We're talking about remote working system, short-term working, hourly or part-time working system, hybrid working system. For example, where we were not talking about flexible workforce in our organization, but right now, to manage business fluctuation and to manage our costs, flexible workforce is a good solution to think about it. So according to McKinsey's search, 800 of CEO attended this survey, and 70% of CEO says that they will prefer outsource or flexible workforce in their organization in 2 years' time. So this is a time to think about our, working systems. In addition, companies has to revise their benefit package. Modern and flexible benefit packages more preferable by employees. So we have to be careful about what kind of benefits we are providing to our employees. Our learning system will change. We need to keep best people, and we need to develop our employee skills. Therefore, we will change our learning system, and we need to combine with technology. So the way of learning is changing too. We're talking about agile learning system. So gaming, virtual reality, technology will be a hot topic in learning system too. Recruitment onboarding system will change, already changed, to be honest. We need to rethink our recruitment system and onboarding system. Remote onboarding, all these kind of things has to get some support from technology. Otherwise, we're not able to manage all these subjects in our organization. And we need to think about our tools and their capacity. So in addition, also we have to think about the performance system that we are using in our organization. Is it going to cover the future needs too? So these are the hot topic for the recruitment, onboarding, and performance sides. Skill set will change. With technology development, it's important to identify the skills that you will be needed in the future and to develop your existing team skills too. Necessary steps must be taken for talent transformation. We have to define the skill set for your future talents, and we need to develop existing employee skills and competencies too. Certification will be very, very important for the future candidates. And The leadership style, also Funda mentioned about that. Old school and traditional management system will change too. Engaging people, coaching people, mentoring people, and inspiring people will be most preferable management style in the future. And agile management or resilient management system is going to be much more talk about that. Communication system will change too. Client visit, meetings, business travels, communication with your team, and communication with your customer is changing. Social media and its channels are changing too. And when I think about the investment areas, in a short, I don't want to repeat myself, but the future that we have been talking has already came. And we are need on to focus on new future and how it's going to be. So we have to ask some questions to ourselves. Values of companies and the employees' values are very, very important for the future. Technology investment, no doubt about that. We have to invest technology. We need to say focus on people. We have to put people on your business center, which is very, very valuable. And we have to do some surveys. We have to get some, outcomes from our customers, clients, and candidates. So this is very important. Talent and defining the future sets is very, very important. And also leading and managing our team members are very, very important. Being a green company and sustainability is a hot topic in the future. It's important for your business to be sustainable and leave a legacy for the future. We should calculate our negative impact on Earth, and we need to reduce this negative impact, to be honest, by doing, changing our printing environment, informing everyone, and doing less printing, and etc., etc. The other topic that we are going to talk about, gender equality and diversity. I don't want to take a part. We will be talking about this subject with Canan and Yeşim Hanım. So before giving a word to Aslı, I just want to ask some questions to you to think about. How we are going to balance flexibility and authority in your organization, for example, and mental health, well-being, psychology, safety, sustainability. What does it mean in your organization? What will be your management style in the future? Those are some questions to get ready for the future. It's time to think about, these questions answered, and we are ready to support you whenever you want. Thank you very much, Aslı, and I'm going to give a word to you. Thanks.
Asiye Hanım, thanks for your contribution. It's very valuable for us. Now I am not mute. Okay. It's obvious that COVID-19 pandemic affected the whole world in a very negative way. However, women, especially working women, felt a big pressure on their shoulders during this period. To cut the long story short, I would like to hand over the screen to Dr. Yeşim Sünbüloğlu and Professor Dr. Canan Sumer from Özyeğin University. Yeşim Hanım, which kind of observations would you like to share with us today? The screen is yours.
Thank you very much. I will be giving you, let me just share my screen with you. I've got a few slides to show. So I think that's okay now. So I will be basically introducing the gender aspect of COVID-19 experiences. I'll give you an overview and then hand it over to Professor Canan Sumer for more details against this background. So I've focused on, the situation in Turkey how women have been experiencing the pandemic in Turkey based on some of the results of the surveys focusing on women's experiences in Turkey. So, well, of course, as Aslı was saying, we all know that, based on surveys, reports, and comments, we know that vulnerabilities of particularly disadvantaged groups have exacerbated during the time of the pandemic. And, the disadvantaged groups, of course, include women. So when we think about the negative impact, because we know that, again, based on surveys, reports, etc., we know that women have been particularly negatively impacted in terms of employment, work-life balance, access to healthcare, and of course, increase of gender-based violence. And these are just some of the main areas. We can go into a lot more detail, but since we've got very limited time, I'm just trying to, limit my focus. When we think about the broader context, I think it is very important to take into consideration gender-sensitive policy. What kinds of policies governments are introducing or have introduced actually during this time. According to a monitoring and evaluation report, they were just monitoring all the policies globally. In 206 countries, out of a total of 2,517 pandemic-related measures, 992 of them were gender sensitive. This is more than a third. I mean, it's still not very good, but when you compare it to the figures in Turkey, this will look good in a moment. So in Turkey, we've got a total of 28 measures during the pandemic time introduced by our government. Only 7 of them are gender sensitive, accounting for just a quarter of them. And this, of course, is very much related to the general approach of the government, the family-centric approach to making policy in Turkey, which assumes that the domestic responsibilities, caring responsibilities will be fulfilled by women, and in an unpaid form, of course. That was the case before the pandemic, and this is kind of a continuity during the pandemic. Of course, when we think about, that broader context, I think is important because that shapes women's experiences, working or not, women's experiences during the pandemic. This is one thing to take into consideration. The first set of statistics that comes into mind so that we can understand how women are experiencing, particularly working women are experiencing the pandemic, of course, figures for employment and work-life balance. When we look at the figures in terms of unemployment, and I've got 3 categories here, as you can see. Unemployment among women due to pandemic, when we look at wage laborers, it was 19%. Those who were involved in more flexible employment schemes, unemployment rate has been 27%, and those who have their own businesses, 19% of them went out of business. And what is important is that when we compare it to figures for men, male counterparts, we can see that percentages in all categories are much higher when it comes to women. So we can understand that more women in many different categories, in different forms of employment, women have gone out of employment during this time. And that's something to keep in mind, of course. The other thing, Elvan Hanım was also talking about that, work-life balance, and a significant part of work-life balance is about sharing domestic responsibilities. How equally can they be shared? That's a huge question, of course. When we look at statistics, again, about that, we can see that first of all, during the pandemic, women's responsibilities have increased by 4 times. They just quadrupled. Women have got 4 times more responsibilities during the time of the pandemic, with, you know, especially for women with children, of course, distant education contributed to that. And when we look at how domestic responsibilities and caring responsibilities are shared during the time of pandemic, because that's a new situation, and you would expect that, you know, sharing schemes, sharing or how we organize household responsibilities might change as well. But what we see is that, according to one survey, only 4.21% of partners or spouses have begun to share, domestic responsibilities, and only 0.79% of children have taken over some of the responsibilities. That leaves 95% of all responsibilities to women, and that's again a very important thing to consider when we think about how women employees are, experiencing this period. Against this general background, I'd like to focus on 3 areas which I believe relevant, again, to understand women's, experiences, particularly working women's experiences during the pandemic. One of them is, of course, access to healthcare and increases of gender-based violence. Both areas are quite important, I believe, because they have significant impact on employee well-being. So I believe it's important to have some information about these areas and how women have been affected in these areas. A general comment, of course, we are all aware of this, but just to put it into some statistics, positive sense of well-being among women declined by 49% during the pandemic. It was, those who had a positive sense of well-being was around 79% before the pandemic, and with the pandemic, only 30% of respondents say that they have some kind of positive sense of well-being. And that's a huge, of course, group of people who don't feel good. In terms of access to healthcare, 4 out of 10 women could not get access to healthcare services during this time. And 7 out of 10 women could not get access to sexual and reproductive health services, even though they needed them. And that's, that's a very high figure. And violence against women have tripled. That's according to one survey. Of course, there are many figures, and there are observations, of course, but one important thing is that the statistics collected by the state, they're not transparent, so we don't know the full picture. We don't know the the full extent of the situation, I'm afraid. The second point that I'd like to focus on is the importance of gender equality awareness. So in one of these surveys by Kadının İnsan Hakları Yeni Çözümler Derneği, it's Women's Human Rights New Solutions, that's an NGO, a Turkish NGO. They have one of the most comprehensive surveys, by the way, on how women have been experiencing the pandemic. They also have a program which they had been continuing for quite a long time. I don't really know how many years, I'm sorry about that, but it's been around for at least 20 years, I think. So they've got this program which is called Women's Human Rights Program, which aims to raise awareness. Women participate in this program, by the way, and the aim of the program is to raise awareness of gender equality and also provide, supporting mechanisms for women. So in their survey, this organization, this NGO, had some comparable data. So they were comparing data from the general population with data coming from the program's participants. And of course, you know, that there's more data related to that, but I just picked 2 points from that comparison. So we can see, looking at the comparison, we can see that there's more equal sharing of domestic responsibilities in the households of participants of this program. So when it comes to cleaning responsibilities, for instance, 11.4% of partners, spouses of you know, the program's participants took some responsibility, as opposed to just 2.1% of the general population. The survey also shows that the programs, women's human rights programs participants were better at developing coping strategies during the pandemic time. So those who said they were completely unable to cope with economic problems, the general population, the percentage was 47%. But for the program participants, it was 38%. And again, those who said they were completely unable to cope with increased domestic responsibilities, the general population, the percentage was 10%, whereas among the participants of the program was 6%. So as you can see, supporting women, raising their awareness of gender equality and creating some support mechanisms, some networks of support among women through training programs, for instance, or other kinds of programs, they do help women in coping with the pandemic. The last point that I'd like to make is that we keep saying that, of course, I'm here sort of introducing a small portion of the gender aspect. Women's problems is just one aspect of the whole gender issues related to pandemic. And even when we say women, I think it's important to know that women are not, or we're not talking about a homogeneous category when we say women. So, within this broader category of women, we do have more vulnerable groups, and they might have different kinds of needs, different kinds of support systems. And women with disabilities is just one of those groups. And there's a particular survey carried out again in Turkey to understand how women experience the pandemic, women with disabilities. So as you can see, these figures are from April 2020, the beginning of the pandemic. The unemployment of women with disabilities was twice as much compared to women without disabilities, according to this labor unions survey. And 70% of women with disabilities live below the starvation threshold. So we're already talking about a very vulnerable group. And of course, their conditions have worsened with the pandemic. I'm afraid we don't have comparable data. It would have been great to compare these figures with, the data related to women without disabilities. But in Turkey, lack of data, insufficient data is a huge problem, I'm afraid. But these figures can at least give us an idea about how this particularly vulnerable group of women are experiencing the pandemic. So 18% of them said that they have to work outside working hours. So they have to work during the evening or during the weekends. And 15% of women with disabilities said that their workload has increased during the pandemic. And a very important figure, I believe, is that 44% of them said that they can socialize a lot less due to the conditions of distant working, which of course affect their well-being, mental well-being in general. Thank you very much. these were the things that I wanted to focus on. Now I'm handing over to Professor Sumer so that she can provide us with more details.
Thank you, Yeşim Hanım. These are very valuable researches and some figures for us. Thank you very much. And Canan Hanım, it's your turn.
We cannot hear you, Canan Hanım. You are mute. No, still we cannot.
I'm sorry about that. Okay. And okay, I'm
welcome again.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for this invitation. By training, I am an work and organizational psychologist. So I will try to approach the issue from this perspective, work and organizational perspective. Gendered nature of COVID-19, or actually we could also say that regressive effects of COVID-19 on gender equality. Well, an overview, basically I will be talking about very briefly, of course, these issues, starting with pre-COVID not being a bed of roses, and then effects of COVID-19 on women's employment, unpaid care and its implications, flip side of remote working, an upsurge in domestic violence, and observed and projected consequences of the pandemic. Well, it wasn't a bed of roses before the pandemic. Women globally make up 39% of employment. In Turkey, they represent 32% of the workforce. And when we examine the labor force participation rate of Turkish women, it was 34.4 in 2019, and it dropped 26.3, a 8.1% drop in 1 year, meaning that only 26.3% of eligible women in Turkey are in the labor force. Well, of course, women had made or achieved some progress toward gender parity before the pandemic. Yet these advances were quite limited, and gender gap remains across the world. We have different forms of discrimination, different forms of mistreatment, and they are all alive and well. Just to mention a few of them: glass ceiling, maybe we are a little bit over that, but glass cliff, glass elevator, selective incivility, sexism, both in the form of hostile and benevolent type. Selective incivility, we can talk about each one of them in detail, of course, but selective incivility, nowadays researchers, for example, are talking about cyber or online incivility, when a large portion of the people working are online, they are online working. And some examples of selective incivility would be not responding to mails, or not including greetings when you communicate online, or prolonged meetings, like endless Zoom meetings, for example. The reason that I'm focusing on selective incivility, because it is being argued that this is a modern form of racism and sexism, and women and other minorities are more likely to be subject of this form of incivility. And selective incivility is a type of mistreatment which prepares or which makes other forms, more severe forms of incivility easier. if you have time, we may want to talk about or discuss these different forms of mistreatment afterwards. All these resulting in underrepresentation of women in the workforce, in elite leadership positions, in policy making, and of course, pervasive wage gap. COVID-19 definitely had, as some of the speakers already talked in detail, had effects on women's employment. In fact, we need to acknowledge that women and men tend to cluster in different occupations. And this fact, in fact, shapes the gender implications of COVID-19 very clearly. Women's employment is dropping faster than average. 54% of pandemic-related job losses are the jobs lost by women. Women jobs are 1.8 times more vulnerable to this crisis, actually to all different types of crisis. Sectors in which women are disproportionately represented have been affected by the pandemic more severely, like accommodations and food service, retail and wholesale trade, and other services, including arts, recreation, and public administration. In fact, ILO had a warning on this. COVID-19 would wipe out the modest progress made on gender equality at work in recent decades, it stated. An estimated 40% of women employed globally work in hard-hit sectors such as hospitality and retail, according to ILO. In contrast to previous crises, women employment is at greater risk than men's, particularly owing to the impact of downturn on the service sector. Well, a related issue is unpaid care and increased family responsibilities. It was not fair to begin with and has gotten worse during the pandemic, I believe. Why? Normally, women shoulder an average of 75% of the world's total unpaid care, including childcare, elderly care, housework. Pre-COVID data from the States, women spend more hours per day than men on household chores. Women spend almost double the time providing care for children in the home than their male counterparts. In Turkey, I wasn't able to find a more recent data. Women spend 31% of their time, total time, on household activities, while this figure is only 4% for men. As schools and daycares close, dual learner parents increase the time spent on family responsibilities, an estimated 30% in India and 1.5 to 2 hours in the United States. Since women engage in childcaring and household responsibilities more than men, they are shouldering a higher amount of this increased burden. And according to Boston Consulting Group, women with children now spend an average 65 hours a week on the unpaid chores, nearly a third more than their male counterparts. So women, in short, are far more likely to reduce their paid labor to be able to meet increases in child care obligations and demands during the pandemic. And the expected or projected disappointing result of this is an increase of 20 to 50% in the gender gap in work hours. Well, the flip side of remote working, IO psychologists, industrial and organizational psychologists actually are extensively talking about this and researching these topics? Well, there are a number of threats, in fact, especially or challenges faced by women. The first one being threat rigidity effect. This refers to the tendency of managers to centralize authority in response to the crisis. This is a general tendency, and we could say that, well, from this tendency, both men and women are equally likely to be affected, not necessarily, because in fact, female workers, women workers have already very weak ties to access critical information and resources. They are less likely to be involved in critical decision-making processes. So they are, to begin with, not included in powerful networks. And if fewer and fewer people are involved in decision-making, women are very likely to be excluded in these processes further. And prolonged work hours, as some of the speakers talked about, definitely. Blurred work, non-work boundaries. What is the implication of this? Basically increased spillover, especially negative spillover from work domain to home domain and from home domain to work domain. And depletion, ego depletion, we psychologists call it, stemming from multitasking, lack of resources because of multitasking. These are all among the flip side of remote working. Another potential threat facing women is the upsurge in domestic violence. Well, this is a known fact. Women and girls are more vulnerable to abuse and violence, especially at times of crisis. Perhaps because of lack of access to regular social networks, sources of support, and basically this is an issue not specific to COVID-19. In all humanitarian and public health emergencies, we basically observed this upsurge in domestic violence. In our recent past, it happened in South Sudan during the decades of war, or in 2014 and 2016 in West Africa during the Ebola crisis. Basically, women and girls were much more likely to be a subject of sexual violence, especially. And when we examine more recent COVID-related research, we see a positive correlation between daily new cases of COVID-19 and reports of domestic violence in many countries. Also, women calling anti-violence centers and shelters increased dramatically in some countries. Exposure to domestic violence increased by the lack of access to regular social networks, sources of support, as well as other support services, because some support services at the beginning of the pandemic, they were also closed down. So furthermore, complicating the matters for us, for women in Turkey, we have an expected facilitator of this upsurge in domestic violence in Turkey because of the withdrawal from the Istanbul Convention. Law enforcement officers recorded a total of almost 90,000 domestic abuse-related incidents between January 1st and May 20 in Turkey. This is in 2020. This is amazing, and probably these figures have been changed, increased and I'm afraid that the withdrawal from the convention will have an even further negative effect on these statistics. And not the least, of course, when we are talking about working women, we need to talk about essential workers, those who are not remotely working, nurses, nurse assistants, grocery store cashiers, technicians, health people, especially women working in health-related jobs, and cleaning workers. They are subject to some more intense forms of challenges in the time of COVID-19. Okay. This is an interesting study for those who are interested in reading this excellent report. I have just summarized some of the major interesting findings. This is a survey study recently conducted using a phone survey, including more than 1,500 men and women. This is a report commissioned by UN Women and supported by, interestingly, Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency. Some findings, actually, I will be repeating myself, some findings from Turkey, women's participation in the labor market and their share among business owners was lower than men pre-COVID, and this crisis is likely to exacerbate these inequalities. Surveyed women in this study experienced higher levels of job loss than men. Women took more leave of absence from work compared to men. More women changed their workplace and started to work from home. Women experienced an increase of workload, domestic work, more than men. More women have experienced negative effects of COVID-19, that is like, an effect on their well-being, subjective well-being, and women heard more violence than men. So observed and projected consequences, and I'm talking about empirical findings, decreases in productivity, job satisfaction, well-being, life satisfaction, performance, career satisfaction and progress, salaries and wages, reduced lifetime earnings, and long-term and short-term economic insecurity. These are just some of the observed and projected consequences of this pandemic. Okay, and conclusion, overall, I will say COVID-19 is definitely gendered. Women's jobs and livelihoods are more vulnerable to the pandemic. Costs involve losses in gender parity, economic benefits, and well-being. And policymakers, leaders, work organizations, managers, women themselves, their partners, and families must assume responsibility, I believe, in reducing the regressive effects of COVID-19 on gender equality. Okay, thank you for listening.
Canan Hanım, thank you very much for these kinds of very valuable observations and the figures and percentages that you shared with us today. Thank you very much. Before ending our webinar, you can use chat box for your possible questions and your feedbacks. If you don't have any questions, that I can say we have completed one more delightful webinar together with you. Hope you enjoyed and inspired from the content shared by our valuable guest speakers today. And we will continue to provide unique platforms for our members and for you, of course. And we believe that any topic belongs to human being makes difference. Thank you everyone for being with us today, and stay tuned with Swedish Chamber of Commerce in Turkey.
Thank you, Aslı. Thank you for all our guest speakers. Thank you very much. Highly appreciated. Thank you very much, Excellency, also for your participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice day.
Thank you very much.
Great
Have a
weekend.
nice
And
weekend.
happy Easter.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great
Take care.
weekend. Bye-bye.